26P34, request of John Flaherty to address the City Council regarding the following item: opportunities to create safer streets in Woonsocket.
I would ask that we adhere to the 10-minute limit for these presentations.
Good evening, Council President Gendron,
Good evening.
members of the City Council and City staff. My name is John Flaherty, and I work for an organization called Grow Smart Rhode Island. Work on transportation policy and advocacy. I'm also the chair of the State's Transportation Advisory Committee. I'm not a resident of Woonsocket, but I do live just over the line, and so I may be familiar because I spend a lot of time in this great city. I'm a regular at your concert series in the summer, and two of my daughters graduated from Beacon Charter School. So I'm on the agenda to talk about opportunities to create safer streets in the city of Woonsocket. And I want to begin by acknowledging something very difficult. And that is that over the last year and a half, Woonsocket has experienced several crashes that have shaken this community. Maybe most painfully, many of us remember the death of a 4-year-old child in January of 2025. Since then, and more recently, in the last month alone, there were 2 incidences that have been mentioned earlier. One was on May 15th on Diamond Cove Road, involving a 15-year-old girl who was struck near 1750 Diamond Hill Road. And then more recently, on May 21st, a 17-year-old pedestrian was struck by a vehicle on Park Avenue. So these are certainly personal tragedies for the families involved, but they also remind us of the larger public safety challenge that we all face, and certainly in Woonsocket. What I want to be very clear about tonight is that Woonsocket is not alone. So I brought with me this latest report. It was 2024 from Smirk America. It's called Dangerous by Design. And it tallies the number of pedestrian deaths across the country over the period of 2010 through 2022. Now totaling, at least as of 2022, 7,522 pedestrian deaths. So this is a national problem for sure. And while the trend is alarming, it's not inevitable. And if we look across the country, a lot of communities are showing that pedestrian deaths and serious injuries can be reduced when combining effective enforcement with safer street design. And Woonsocket already has some momentum. The city took an important step by participating in the federally funded Safety Action Plan process. This was a grant that RIPTA got in 2024, and they extended the invitation to all communities in the state. 31 of them, including Woonsocket, opted in to have professionally developed safety action plans as it relates to transportation. I brought a copy with me. It's available online. And it really is a good tool for identifying where the city's most important hotspots are, where the incidences are happening most frequently. And it has a set of recommendations that the city can consider.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes.
What's the site where we can find that report?
It's located on, actually, if you go to ripta.com and you search for safety action plan, they have a whole page on it. The one thing you'll notice about Woonsocket, however, most of the communities, and many of the communities you'll see them in dark blue, meaning that they've actually been approved by the council. There are some that are whited out, and Woonsocket's actually one of the ones that's whited out, meaning that you still as a council need to formally adopt it. And that's one of the things that I wanted to recommend this evening, because by doing so, it opens up the door for Woonsocket to apply for direct federal funding again, direct federal funding to the city, not through the DOT,
Right.
to implement recommendations in this plan. So it's one of the reasons that I was really strongly encouraging the council to formally adopt it. You did pass a resolution early on to approve the city moving forward with this. It didn't cost the city anything. It was all federally funded. And it really highlights there's two different ways we see for to achieve safer streets. One is through enforcement, the other is through design. And it's been said already, we've heard several people talk about the ordinance that's on your agenda this evening related to speed cameras. That's one example of an enforcement action. Automated speed enforcement isn't the only answer, but it can be a very useful tool to encourage safer driving behavior in places where kids and families walk every day. Increasingly, public safety and transportation professionals recognize that design often shapes behavior more effectively than signs or warnings. So sometimes that can be a somewhat narrower road lane. It causes people to just ride a little bit more slowly. When you have very, very wide lanes and there's a lot of setbacks, I think people just visually think, oh, they're not going that fast, and they tend to speed. Second is that I would like to encourage the council to consider adoption of a complete streets ordinance. So complete streets are streets that are designed with all road users in mind. Pedestrians, cyclists, disabled, elderly, children, and drivers. And we've got several of them adopted in Rhode Island. Complete streets, they don't require rebuilding every road overnight or committing to a central project. What it essentially codifies is that when a local road is going to be repaved, repaired, or reconstructed, that you consider elements of complete street design that will improve the safety of people who use the road. And you've already done this, at least one, and I experience it on Friday evenings in the summer when I attend a concert. And that's the roundabout that was installed at the intersection of what used to be Vernon and Truman Drive. So that naturally causes cars to slow down as they approach it. So it's less of a threat or risk of pedestrians being hit by, somebody had mentioned it earlier, speed does make a difference. There's charts that show as speed increases, in 5 mile per hour increments, the result that often happens in terms of whether it's a serious injury or it's death. So that's a really good example in Woonsocket of where you've done that. But what it does is it codifies that for the future. So regardless of who's sitting in your seats or who's sitting in the administration seats, those principles will continue. Safety, by the way, I just want to point out, safety is not anti-driver and it's not anti-car. It's just as important to people who are driving. I mentioned about the complete streets policy. I just want to close by saying a couple things. One is that GrowSmart is here as a partner and as a resource. We do provide technical assistance. We help communities to navigate through this process. So I would encourage you to consider us as a resource. It doesn't cost anything. And one example of that is I brought with me this evening a table of communities, there's 10 of them in Rhode Island, with school speed zone camera programs. Most of the 10, I think 8 of them are operating. This table says which ones are operating, which ones are under consideration, and it has some notes on the adoption of the ordinance, what year it took place, and so forth, and it may be a helpful resource as you navigate through your ordinance. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Can you leave contact information with us?
I will.
Okay, thank you. And I know Council Garrett Mancieri, who's here tonight, has spoken to me about this. He's an advocate for it, and I think he played a part in you being here this evening, so thank you too for that. Mayor, where does this plan stand now? Because I don't think it's come to the council for approval, but what is the status of that?
I can't answer that. I believe it's in the CDBG office, and we have looked at it. John's information is, if you click on his name under the document, and there he has his road spot contact there. So we will call, I'll call John, we'll set up a meeting, see how we can facilitate and move this forward, because I think he makes great points.
But do we know where that RIPTA study is
I don't,
in the...
I don't, but I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you.